Hello, everyone. Thank you for. You're listening to Give God 90, where we're not afraid of the hard biblical questions because we dig through the language, the culture, and the history to find the truth revealed in the words of our Creator.
All right, and we're coming up and we're doing our thing, and it's all good.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, everyone. We are live on a Thursday night, and as we're doing our thing, and somehow, maybe everything's still right there. Okay, it's still there. All right. When you're trying to do this stuff with one person doing all the stuff, it's kind of fun sometimes, but that's all right. It's all good. It's all good. We're here. Thank you for letting us join you for just a little while. Give God 90 is live on a Thursday night. At the same time, on your favorite podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts, and on Facebook for now. That may change in the very near future, especially now. We'll get into that in a second. But consider a couple of things. Give God 90 does have a page on MeWe. If you want to go there, you can follow us there. I am on Parler, so you can
Pam.
follow me there. Pam's watching. She joined us tonight. Knew that was coming. It was a big week in the United States, so we'll get this out of the way right off the get-go. There's a lot of people all over the world asking the same question. That question is, what happened? United States, what are you doing? I'm going to give you the answer. Okay? And this is the most honest answer you're ever going to get from anybody, I think. We have no idea.
No.
We really don't know what we're doing. There's all kinds of things going on. And we knew this was going to happen. Mm-hmm. We knew this was going to happen. There is things happening on both sides that are above board and things happening on both sides that aren't. So, all across the United States and people around the world are watching this going, what are you doing? They look to us for things, and we're just not there right now. We're just not there right now. But that's okay. That's okay. We were told this was going to happen. We know what's going on. Depending on how things play out in the next several weeks, we may not be on Facebook anymore. We'll stay on the podcast as long as possible, but we'll see how that goes too. We'll change things up and try and keep putting this out and make sure that the community that has come together around Give God 90 will always be there.
Right.
And speaking of that, there are several people all over the world need your prayers, need your support. And I'm not talking about just throwing money at a problem either. I'm talking about getting involved. If you want to help people and you're looking for a way to really get involved and help people, let me know. You can still message me on Facebook. You can email me at jerry@givegod90.com. There's other ways you can get up with me. It's not a big deal. Let me know who you think you want to help, how you want to help, and we'll get you there. There's Jackie in Uganda and Mark in Uganda. Mm-hmm. They're looking to help some orphans. Ronald is also in Uganda, and he's actually looking for books and Bibles. So there's something there to think about. So all the good stuff. All the good stuff. Speaking of books, you can, and you got to do the sales pitch, right? Here's the advertisement. So I got to do the sales pitch and the advertisement. Don't forget Tradition and Truth and God's Universe, God's Rules. They are still available wherever fine books are sold. They may be
Hi, Anne Marie. Thanks for joining.
You know, they may be out of sync here one of these days. But anyway, I know this is kind of a weird way to start something when we're talking about biblical principles, biblical concepts, okay? But I'm going to ask this question because not a lot of people realize how all of these things fit together or work together. Do you recognize the name, or have you ever heard of a lady named Elizabeth Willing Powell? Now you have, because you've heard me tell this story. Mm-hmm. Elizabeth Willing Powell lived when during the Revolution. She lived through the American Revolution, and she was made famous because she is the person who asked Benjamin Franklin, as he was leaving the Constitutional Congress, as they finished everything up, she says, "Mr. Franklin, what did you give us, a democracy or a republic?" And Ben Franklin looked at her and he said, "A republic, if you can keep it." Now, this really isn't about politics, because Elizabeth Powell in the late 1700s couldn't vote. She couldn't she couldn't go to the polls. Mm-mm. She couldn't vote for whoever was going to be the first president of the United States. She couldn't vote for a senator. She couldn't even vote for what was for supper. Okay, this is late 1700s. Mm-hmm. Why did Ben Franklin look at her and say, "A republic, if you can keep it"? And how does that tie into something that Peter wrote and some other things that some other biblical writers and teachers taught? Now, when Peter is addressing in his first letter, we need to remember who he's writing to. And he's actually writing to the scattered strangers, as some translations tell us. But they were actually elect sojourners. And what these people are the people who have chosen to join. They were either Jews who were living in, basically Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, and Bithynia, or Bithynia, I should say. But they could have been Gentiles who joined with those Jews, and they were all beginning to follow this new way, this teacher, this thing that Yeshua, Jesus, was putting out, who said, you know what, you don't have to listen to the Pharisees. You just have to do what Moses said to do, right? You have to live the way your Creator designed you to live. Peter introduces us to this group of people because technically he's writing to them. We're reading somebody else. We're reading their mail, is what we're doing when we're looking at this. So let's skip down to verse 14 for a second of chapter 1 of 1 Peter. And it says, "As obedient children, not fashioning yourselves according to the former lust in your ignorance." In other words, now you're following the instructions. You're not doing the things you used to do because now you know better. Okay, You're no longer ignorant of the laws that Moses put down, the instructions that the Almighty gives to us. Don't go back to doing things the way you used to do them. Verse 15, "But as he which has called you holy, so be holy in all manner of conversation. Because it is written, be ye holy, for I am holy." And you can find that, by the way, in Leviticus 11, verse 44. "And if you call on the Father, who without respect of persons judges according..." Hey, Jay, just saw you jump in on Facebook.
Hi, Tina.
"If you call on the Father, who without respect of persons judgeth according to every man's work..." There's that nasty word again.
Work.
That four-letter word, it just keeps getting in the way of everything, right? "Pass the time of your sojourning here in fear." He's telling them to be careful, right? To do what is righteous. Don't fall back into your old habits. Don't go back to doing things the way you used to do them. And he continues to give them instruction on how to apply their faith to the lives they're now living. Isn't that interesting?
Isn't it?
They're learning how to do things for the first time in a way some of them have never done it before.
Right.
He gets kind of radical. In chapter 2, beginning in verse 11. You want to read chapter 2, beginning in verse 11.
Dear friends, I urge you as strangers and temporary residents to abstain from fleshly desires that war against you. Conduct yourselves honorably among the Gentiles, so that in a case where they speak against you as those who do what is evil, they will, by observing your good works, glorify God on the day of visitation. Submit to every human authority because of the Lord, whether to be emperor as the supreme authority or to the governors as those sent out by him to punish those who do what is evil and to praise those who do what is good. For it is God's will that you silence the ignorance of foolish people by doing good. As God's slaves, live as free people, but don't use your freedom as a way to conceal evil. Honor everyone, love the brotherhood, fear God, honor the emperor.
Now, that's kind of some strange advice that Peter's giving these folks, right? Mm-hmm. What's he telling them? Basically, what Peter's saying here is, look, I urge you as temporary residents. Okay, he says you're not here forever. This is temporary. Mm-hmm. Don't fall for the junk you used to fall for. You're above that now. You don't need that stuff anymore. Okay, conduct yourselves honorably among the people. Right.
Mm-hmm, that's right.
So that if they speak evil against you, or they say, oh, look, they're doing something bad, they're doing stuff they shouldn't be doing, you know what? You silence them by doing good. And then he turns around and says, look, submit to every human authority. And people have an issue with this, but think about it. It says you have to submit to the human authority. It doesn't say you have to violate the instructions from the God to do that, right?
Right.
So, I didn't look up where this was, and I should have, but if you remember when they took Yeshua, they took Jesus into Pilate, right? And he's standing there. What did he say to Pilate? He didn't tell him he didn't have any authority over him, did he?
No.
He said, Pilate, you get your authority from my Father. And that's where you get your authority from. Now, here's where I'm going. And he said, once I get there, then you won't have any more authority over me. But right now, he didn't argue that he didn't have the authority. He just simply said, what authority you do have comes from a different place. Pilate knew that. Pilate wasn't stupid. Pilate knew that. I really like verse 15 there. He says, for it's God's will that you silence the ignorance of the foolish people by doing good. Mm-hmm. It's almost a slap in the face and that's why, let's face it, when you follow the Creator's instructions, you are slapping people in the face who don't. Mm-hmm. And they hate you for it, don't they?
All the time.
Franklin's warning, if you can keep it to a lady who couldn't vote, is much like Peter's advice to do good and live a righteous life where they were at, mm-hmm. right? Because it was very, very difficult for those people to live according to God's instructions where they were. They didn't live in Israel. They were somewhere else. And it's kind of difficult when you're not... it would be really, really difficult for an American to go to, let's say, China, for lack of a better place to go, and try to live by American rules. Jay just said on Facebook that some people need slapping, and that's true. If you're going to offend, I saw something today that said I'd rather offend people into heaven than flatter them into hell. Mm-hmm. So there you go. But if you went to China, if an American moved to China and then tried to live by American law, it's not going to work, right? Mm-hmm. Right. You just can't do that. So, what Peter's advice is, and just like Franklin's advice, is you have to be able to influence the people around you. Okay? Now, I have mentioned before that there is a community of believers that live in an extremely hostile environment. And I'm not talking about weather-wise. I mean politically wise. They live in an extremely hostile environment. That's about all I can say because I don't want them to be found out. There were finances available that offered them a place to go, and they refused to leave. But they didn't refuse to leave because, oh, this is our home and we love it here. No, that's not why they refused to leave. They didn't go because they were making a difference. Mm-hmm. They were converting the enemy and turning them into disciples exactly the way they're supposed to be doing. Mm-hmm. You know, for them, this was their job.
Right.
That's the way they looked at it.
That was their mission.
They understood that by changing lives, they are glorifying the Father. Luke 19 gives us some insights into this, and I was actually looking at this last night when Pam sent me a message and said, explain this, and I'm like, I was just looking at this because these are the notes that I'm putting together for tomorrow. Luke 19, especially in verse 13, we see the word occupy, but what we're going to read is a little different. And again, this is the International Children's Version. And to actually understand what we're talking about by occupy here, we need to get this in context and read the passage that surrounds it. So if you want to start at the beginning of chapter 19 of Luke.
Jesus was going through the city of Jericho. In Jericho there was a man named Zacchaeus. He was a wealthy, very important tax collector. He wanted to see who Jesus was, but he was too short to see above the crowd. He ran ahead to a place where he knew Jesus would come. He climbed a sycamore tree so he could see Jesus. When Jesus came to that place, he looked up and saw Zacchaeus in the tree. He said to him, "Zacchaeus, hurry and come down. I must stay at your house today." Zacchaeus came down quickly. He was pleased to have Jesus in his house. All the people saw this and began to complain. Look at the kind of man Jesus stays with. Zacchaeus is a sinner. But Zacchaeus said to the Lord, "I will give half my money to the poor. If I have cheated anyone, I will pay that person back 4 times more." Jesus said, "Salvation has come to this house today. This man truly belongs to the family of Abraham. The Son of Man came to find lost people and save them." Jesus traveled closer to Jerusalem. Some of the people thought that God's kingdom would appear soon. Jesus knew that the people thought this, so he told them this story. A very important man was preparing to go to a country far away to be made a king. Then he planned to return home and rule his people. So the man called 10 of his servants together. He gave a bag of money to each servant. He said, "Do business with this money till I get back." But the people in the kingdom hated the man. So they sent a group to follow him and say, "We don't want this man to be our king." But the man became king, and when he came home, he said, "Call those servants who have my money. I want to know how much they've earned with it." The first servant came and said, "Sir, I earned 10 bags of money with 1 bag you gave me." The king said to that servant, "Fine, you are a good servant. I see that I can trust you with small things, so now I will let you rule over 10 of my cities." The second servant said, "Sir, with your 1 bag of money I earned 5 bags." The king said to the servant, "You can rule over 5 cities." Then another servant came in. The servant said to the king, "Sir, here is your bag of money. I wrapped it in a piece of cloth and hid it. I was afraid of you because you are a hard man. You even take money that you didn't earn and gather food that you didn't plant. Then the king said to the servant, You evil servant, I will use your words to condemn you. You said that I am a hard man. You said that I even take money that I didn't earn and gather food that I didn't plant. If that is true, then you should have put my money in the bank. Then, when I came back, my money would have earned some interest. Then the king said to the men who were watching, Take the bag of money away from this servant and give it to the servant who earned 10 bags of money. They said to the king, But sir, that servant already has 10 bags of money. The king said, The one who uses what he has will get more, but the one who does not use what he has will have everything taken away from him. Now where are my enemies who don't want me to be king? Bring them here and kill them before me.
You know, I could go on for a long time about this, but when you were reading that, something popped up, and it is in verse 9, I think. Oh, yeah. Jesus said, Salvation has come to this house today. What's Jesus' name in Hebrew?
Yeshua.
Yeshua. What does Yeshua mean? God is our salvation. I want to read that in Hebrew once Miles Jones gets it, because this is a play on words in Hebrew, and that proves to me, I can look at that in English and I can say this was originally written in Hebrew. Okay? That just struck me right there. Mm-hmm. All right, enough down in that rabbit hole enough. The word translated as occupy in verse 13 in the King James Bible is actually not the way we think about occupy today. Okay? It means to do business, and that's the way the International Children's Bible actually translated it. It's do business, and that's the way it is in Greek. We'll get to that in a second. But think about this. In 1828, Noah Webster did his dictionary, and when he looked at the word occupy, he said it's a transitive verb that means to take possession, right? But then at the end of his list of definitions, he says occupy can also be used as an intransitive verb that means to do business or to negotiate. Now, that's a really technical way of saying, okay, there's two different ways you can do this, because one way, occupy, it needs a subject. You have to explain it in a way. The other way is it doesn't need a subject. You can just be. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like, and I can't remember the Greek word off the top of my head, but it's used in the end of Matthew where Yeshua says, now, as you are going, but King James translated as go and make disciples. It's not, telling them that they have to go do this. It's like, look, as you're living your lives, as you're going about your daily business, as you're doing things, it's the same type of concept here. As you're living, as you're going, as you're doing, you have to, not just survive here. We're designed to thrive here, right? Mm-hmm. So, if you look at the Strong's, it's 4231 for all of the people who are keeping notes. You're going to see that is actually, they just denote it as a verb. It doesn't say one way or the other, and I think that's the way that works in Greek. But it means to transact business or trade, to negotiate, not to just do what the one guy did who buried the money, right? You have to interact with people.
Right.
The parable that's used, Yeshua is speaking about using our faith to create disciples. Look at what he did for Zacchaeus. And I'm surprised you got through that without singing the song.
I tried not to.
It's really kind of amazing that we look at this and it says when we hide ourselves away, we're not conducting business. I know people who once they get their little bit of faith, all they want to do is stick their head in the Bible and not go anywhere, not do anything, not see the world around them. They want to hide from it. I'm sort of related to one of these kinds of people, but they don't want, they got their blinders on. And if somebody's not coming right up into that, then they don't want to deal with it. Right. There's actually a church right down the street that's the same way. If you're not cleaned up when you go knock on their door, don't knock on their door, right? Because they don't want anything to do with you. Here's another issue. Yeshua as our example. Now, there is a couple of times where it says he went up on the mountain and sat down and the disciples came to gather around him, right? Mm-hmm. Hey, there's Carol joining us.
Hi, Carol.
Glad
Thanks
to see
for coming.
But the thing is, they were already with him. He just went ahead of them, right? They were already following him. When he was starting out, he didn't just decide one day, you know what, I think I'm going to be a rabbi. I think I'm going to be a teacher. I think I'm going to do... And he didn't just walk up on a hill and sit down on a rock and expect people to come listen. He had to go out and find people who were willing to follow, right?
Right.
He had to actively search them out, seek them out, and say, you don't have to fish for fish right now. I got something better for you. Just come along. You'll see. And he was a good enough salesman. He didn't need some, long line of, I see Sean's checking. He didn't need some long line of shady lemon kind of sales pitch. He just told him the flat out truth. And he says, if you'll follow me, you just come with me, you'll see what's coming on. You'll see everything will be good, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. And
that's what he did. Now, how we conduct business is different for everyone. Some people, are presidents of large corporations, right? And I can think of Chick-fil-A and Hobby Lobby, and they use their influence, okay? They use their influence, and they display their faith by saying, you know what, we're going to take one day off. Now, I get, the Messianic Hebrew Roots people are going to go, but they're taking the wrong day off. They take a day off. Mm-hmm. It's a beginning. Okay, it's someplace to start. I know it's Sunday. They'll figure it out eventually. But at least it's a start. They're using their influence with their employees to say, here, we're going to display our faith. This is how we're going to do it. Other people work in other ways. Some people are heads of government. Some stock store shelves. No matter if you're rich, it doesn't matter if you're poor, it doesn't really matter. You've been given a certain number of something, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's 10 bags of faith. Sometimes it's 1 bag of faith, right?
Right.
What are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with it? You don't always have the opportunity, right, maybe I should back up for a second. You're not always going to have the opportunity to waste your time, right?
Right.
You need to get out there and be in front of people and say, look, this is what we got. This is what we need to do. Will you let your faith stand out and be an influence in the community where you feel safe? There's a whole lot of people that I know of. I've never met any of them personally. But they're working in a community that's not safe for them to work in. Mm-hmm. But they're doing it. They're not just hiding in a hole, hoping that somebody's going to come knock on their door and say, I hear you have a bag of faith. Can you give me a little?
Right.
It doesn't work that way. You have to display it. You have to share it. It's real easy to have a bag of faith and share it among people you feel confident with, right? That's easy. Anybody can do that. Mm-hmm. It's not as easy to have that bag of faith and share it among people that you might not know. I have people all the time contact me and say, are you sure you wanted to say that? Well, yeah, I am. Most of these folks that contact me and say, I don't agree with what you're saying are pastors. We don't agree with your theology. Prove me wrong. Well, my professor said, I don't care what your professor said. Tell me what's in Scripture. Right. Because if I'm not, I'm kind of like Paul. I'm too dumb to get on this high and mighty thing. If I just keep quoting scripture often enough, I'm going to say something relevant sooner or later, right? You're right, Jay. You do have to live your faith. And that is exactly what we're getting at here. You have to live and display your faith. But you don't get to hide. You don't get to this whole concept of being able to occupy until he returns. I'm going to speculate on something before I leave. Jerry the Radical. Yeah, always have been, I guess, a little bit. And here's my speculation warning. All right, you can't find this in Scripture. Okay, telling you right now, it's not there. This is me saying I think this is a possibility. Just as Ben Franklin warned Elizabeth Powell, it's a republic if you can keep it. She asked, what did you give us? If somebody came up to Peter and said, Peter, what kind of life is Yeshua promising? You know what? I think I know. I'm speculating on Peter's answer here, okay? But I think Peter would say, if the question is, what kind of life is Yeshua promising? I think Peter's answer is going to be everlasting life, if you follow the instructions.
That's it.
If you're willing to live the way your Creator designed you to live. If you're willing to do, if you're willing to put forth the effort. If you're willing to accept that bag of faith and, spend a little of it and hope you get some return. A lot of times people, they put down Jeremiah, the prophet Jeremiah, because they say, oh, he worked all those years and never had a convert. He didn't need to convert anybody. He wasn't out there looking for the Gentiles to come into the faith, right?
Right.
What his job was saying, look, you people got it wrong. You need to turn around and start living the way you're designed to live. Because you are not following the Creator's instructions and getting you in deeper and deeper and deeper in trouble. Right?
Yes.
He didn't need to convert anybody. He just had to convince the people who were already converted. I guess I could say it that way. He was just trying to convince the people who should have been doing what they should have been doing to do the things they should have been doing. Now, if that doesn't confuse you, nothing will, because it's you know how that is, right? When you know that there's things you have to do, but you refuse to do them, you just refuse to do them. That is, what did the king say? What did the king say about the one guy? Let me scroll up here and find it. Then the king said to the men who were watching, take the bag of money away from the servant and give it to the servant who earned 10. Take the faith away from the person who says, but Lord, didn't we heal the sick in your name? Didn't we cast out demons in your name? Take that bag of faith away from them. And, oh, by the way, they're my enemies. Kill them in front of me. Depart from me, I never knew you. You see how all that works together? Isn't it kind of neat the way I snuck all that together? Yeah, Pam will like that. But here it is. Time after time after time. You don't just get to hide. You have to put yourself out there. You have to be willing to do the things that you're doing. A couple years ago, they had all these preppers that, just expected the end of the world because they knew that things were going to happen that might be happening any time. And there was a really interesting take on that from someone who was a military advisor. He said, all the people who are burying themselves and hiding in these holes in the ground with 10 years supply of food, just cover them up. They won't hurt anybody if they can't get out. Just cover them up. It's okay. They're there. They're stuck. They can't get out. They're safe. Right? But the thing is, when you have that bag of faith and you go hide, the king is coming. And he's going to uncover it. And he's going to uncover you. And you have to stand there and say, I know you're tough. I know you're hard. You harvest what you didn't plant. What do you mean? Let me use your words against you. But Lord, didn't we heal the sick? Didn't we cast out demons? Yes, you did. Who are you? And why are you still standing there? Not the words you want to hear on that day, because there are no more second chances. At that point, you are all out of do-overs. Not going to happen. We have to be realistic. We have to live in this world, right? It doesn't matter the politics of the world. It doesn't matter the physical environment we're in. Friends of mine that they want to share on Facebook these things about the super volcano in Yellowstone, and I had to comment. I've been looking at houses there, like right next door, like in the next county over from where Yellowstone Park is, and if that's the way that the Almighty chooses to destroy a third of the world with fire, the way He's going to do it, that's up to Him. The only way you're going to stay safe, and there's no guarantee of being physically safe, but it is to follow His instructions. You go where you're told to go. You do what you're told to do. And at that, if that's what you're doing, it doesn't matter.
No.
It really doesn't matter. We have friends who were in the military, and they're like, the one thing you learn in the military, well, one of the people told me, is, if it's my day to go, it's my day to go. I can't stop it. And if it's my day, and I'm in a theater of war, there's no difference between dying in a theater of war or dying in a car crash, in whatever place I might live.
That's right.
It's that way. Nobody gets out of this world alive. A lot of people like to think they will, but nobody does. You have to go through a transition, because flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom. Don't bank on being able to hide yourself away and, studying and studying and studying, because all the studying doesn't do any bit of good if you're not sharing it. Everything that you learn is meant to be shared. It's meant to be put out and tested. And I have thankfully I have the group for Messianic Delaware that I can put out, and I can say, okay, what do you think about this? I do this all the time. Jay does it, Pam does it. We all do. We said, I think this means this. What do you think? We think this means this. What do you think? Tell me where you're coming from. How do we get here from here? How do we get from point A to point B on this road? Is there connecting dots? And sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't, right? Doesn't matter. Because we all learn. We all learn. When Peter told that group living, basically in Asia Minor, he says, look, you've got to live. You've got to conduct business. You have things you have to do. I kind of like to think Ben Franklin learned from that lesson, and he looked at this lady who couldn't vote, who really didn't have any authority at all in that period of history, and he said, if you can keep it. And when somebody asks you, what does God have to promise? You know what? Your answer could be, well, everlasting life, if you're willing to follow His instructions. If you're willing to do the things He says, if you're willing to live according to the way He designed you to live. So, I hope have I convinced people to do that yet? I don't know. One other thing before we go, though, really quick. I had to come to my own revelation this week, because I used to think, you know what, if I can convince people, it's not up to me to convince people. If people hear me and reject me, they hear me and reject me, right?
That's right.
My job has to be for the people who I do reach and the people who keep coming back week after week after week, and there's right around 1,000 of you now, and I appreciate each and every one of you. And some of you, barely speak English, and that's a good thing. You're the ones that I need to take care of, and you're the ones I need to convince to share your faith. Don't just hide it, but put it out there. One of the ways you could do that is sharing these teachings. You can share the video. You can still share the video on Facebook. There is a way to share the podcast out there. So, go ahead and do that. Like I said, don't know how much longer we're going to be on Facebook, because I don't know how much longer they're going to allow this kind of stuff.
Right.
But as long as they are, we'll be there. When they come up with a better way, we'll join a better way. It's just that simple. If you want to go to MeWe, if you want to go to Parler, I'm on MeWe personally. I'm on MeWe with Give God 90. Parler is just me. Haven't put anything else out there on that yet. But, find us, share your faith. Don't hide it. It doesn't work if you hide it. Bad things happen when you hide it. You need to put yourself out there. Don't, there's a lot of you living in the United States. It's okay. Nobody yet is going to cut your head off in the United States. Other places around the world, you need to be more careful. You need to be a little covert. You need to be kind of, rather than in your face sort of a thing. Just simply smiling and living. And the whole time somebody's oppressing you, you can pray for them and bless them, right?
Right.
What was verse 15? You silence the foolish and the ignorant when you do good. There are ways to do that. There are good ways to do that. So, just because we do it one way in the United States and we do it a different way someplace else, and a different way someplace else, there are times when I speak differently depending on which group I'm speaking to, too, right?
Right.
Because you have to be able to read and recognize the people you're talking to so that you can explain to them in a way they can understand. Because not everybody's going to follow God's instructions, right?
Right.
Some people need to understand first who He is. You don't want to give somebody dessert before they've had a decent meal, right? So don't forget that as well. So for all the folks listening overseas, yes, be brave, but be careful as you're being brave, right?
Right.
And y'all know who you are. So did you have anything else you wanted to add to that tonight?
No? Thanks everyone for joining us tonight.
Yep, we certainly do thank everybody for joining us. We appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you, Jay, for all your comments, especially the last one. I like that one. It's my favorite.
He said awesome teaching.
and for the folks that are listening to the podcast, if you download the free Give God 90 app for your mobile device, you can comment as well. You don't have to be on a desktop or laptop. You can do it. There is a comment section there, so don't be afraid to use it. Even no matter when you're listening to it, it doesn't have to be live. Okay? If you do it live, I can comment back. But if you do it afterwards, I still get notified, several weeks after, as long as the archives are up. So don't forget that. Appreciate all the likes, appreciate all the shares.
Sure do.
Go live. Go live your life the way you are designed to live it. Not the way I'm designed to live it, the way you're designed to live it. Okay? Thank you, everyone. We appreciate it.